Okay, so this is a tool that I created for Mindful Traders Academy. It is my accuracy calculator. I use this when creating more data-driven strategies, but it's also a pretty good one to use when you look back over your trading and can pull out all of your legitimate trades, all the ones that you'd say, yeah, these were fully my strategy, and you can begin to actually get an idea of what your win percentage, your risk reward is. And the reason I use this is to gain an idea as to how good you need to be profitable, and also to see whether a strategy is actually viable or not. If you've created a strategy which has a pretty good edge, but is really difficult to implement, then it might not be the best. It might not actually be all that profitable. So I'm going to go through how it works and the things you need to put in. So the elements you need to edit: trades per day, win percentage, risk rewards. So if you have a strategy, I've put in this here where you get 3 trades a day, which gives you a 70% win percentage and a 1.5 rewards of risk, and you've back tested this to get this like hypothetical number, then you can make up to 49.5 R a month. Now, this is an incredibly profitable strategy. This is the sort of thing that I tend to see when you back test with not necessarily best fitting, but like you backtest and you overlook some of the setups that you would take that lost, because we do that as humans, which is why we have this 20% error rate. But if you have your own strategy that you can look back and say, I've got 100 samples of it where I've traded really well, and these are actually the numbers that get thrown out, then you can also use this side for it. And then I've got 2 different calculations essentially. One is the break-even threshold, and one is a threshold where you make 15R in the month. And the reason I use 15R is I think that this is really the lowest number that you want to see consistently. Maybe it's 10R, but I think 15 is sort of like, if you're making 15R a month, then you would say, yeah, you can be pretty successful. If you're taking 100, if you're taking 1R as say $300, then you're making $4,500, which is a comfortable enough amount of profit. So I'm just going to walk through really quickly how this works, if I can remember all the calculations I did. So this is pretty simple. The win percentage you need to be break even with this current risk reward is 1.5. The way this then works is we take the 40% and divide that by the actual win percentage, and that gives us the accuracy rate required, assuming that every single trade that isn't followed is a loss. So what that means is, if you were to take these, if you were to take 50 trades in a month, and 57% of them had this 70% win percentage at a 1 to 1.5 risk rewards, then you would be break even. Assuming that the other 43% of trades are all losing and losing 1R, then that's the thing. And this is where I will put one thing on this, that hard math like this, or very straight up math like this, isn't that applicable to your actual results, but it's a very good idea to just see sort of like a ballpark. So we now know that even though you have a strategy with an incredibly good edge of 70% win percentage, 1 to 1.5 risk rewards, you actually need to execute it 57% of the time accurately to just break even. And that's quite a large number, actually. There's a lot of clients I've had and a lot of people I've spoken to who, when we've looked at their accuracy, it's actually down in sort of like the 20-25% region. So this is already a pretty decent number to get to. I would say that there's probably a lot of traders who are in this sort of ballpark of 40 to 60%, where half the trades they take are at least kind of in line with their strategy, or maybe they got like more trades that are kind of in line with their strategy, and some of them end up being winners even when they weren't perfectly in line. But we can see that you need to be around about 57% accurate. Now, to make 15R, we can see that 15R as a percentage of the 49.5 R expected per month is about 30%. And as a result, we need to figure out how much more, how much more accurate we need to be. 43% of the time we can lose, so we need to essentially work out the percentage of, they say never do maths on videos, and this is probably why, need to figure out what 33 or 30.3% of 43% is, and that comes out to be about 13%, and when you add that to the 57%, you find a 70% accuracy. So what that means is that if we take 66 trades in a month, and this is again where like maybe you end up taking more, but it's always good just to have a ballpark figure. If you take those 66 trades in a month that you'd expect, and 70% of them follow your strategy, in other words, have a win percentage of 70% and a risk reward of 1 to 1.5, and the other 30% of trades that you take are all losing trades, the ones that are not in line with your strategy, then you will make 15R. Now I've added in this 20% error rate, and the calculations down here are exactly the same. But this is kind of for when you've gone through and you've backtested and you've tried to be as accurate as possible with backtesting, but the likelihood is you will have missed some losing trades. You'd have probably added in a few winning trades that weren't quite legitimate, but you wanted to put them in there. So I always add a bit of an error rate. So I put in a 20% error rate, and it gives maybe a more realistic idea of what this strategy would be, which is a 56% win percentage and a 1 to 1.5 risk reward. And we can quickly see that expected return per month comes down. And this is where it actually gets a little bit scary sometimes for traders. And I think this is a big reason as to why so few are actually successful enough to pull money out of the market. Because we can see now that to break even with this strategy here, which is still a very profitable strategy, it's one that over the course of a month would make quite a lot, you now need 71% of the time to be break even. And that is an incredibly high number. That means that if you take 3 trades a day, pretty much every 3 days, give or take, you can afford 1 mistake a day, give or take, to break even. If you take 3 trades, only 1 of them can be a mistake. And most people, over the course of a week where they've taken 15 trades, 10 of them were probably mistakes. So now to break even, you need a pretty high accuracy rate, and to go beyond that and be profitable, 15R in a month, well, now it's 88%, which means that you can make 1 mistake every 3 days. Maybe that translates into something like, I don't know, 4 every 2 weeks or something like that. So maybe you're looking at eight mistakes over the entire month just to make 15R. And the cool thing about this is it really gives you an idea of how good you need to be. So if the only thing it does is tell you, oh, I need to actually be executing my strategy at a really high level, then at least it tells you why you're not successful. I think it just proves why performance is so important. Just to play around with some numbers real quick to give some different looking strategies. Let's say you have a strategy that works 50% of the time, gives you 1 to 2 risk rewards. This is probably the sort of numbers that a lot of traders aim for. Win half the time, big as twice as big as their losses. Returns 33R per month. We can see that to break even, you need 67%, and the accuracy rate needs to be 82%, which is pretty high. That means that you can only really make 2 mistakes every 10 trades you make. That's to be, I would say, comfortably profitable. Let's take a strategy where maybe you go for a much higher risk reward, 40% with risk reward of 3, and we can see still need around that 77% accuracy rate. Let's take let's take a higher win percentage where you're winning 60% of the time, but the risk reward is say 1.7. And again, we're sort of in that mid-70s region. If we throw in a completely different strategy where it's only 20% of the time and the risk reward is like 1 to 7, this should be pretty profitable. It still needs to be correct 77% of the time. And critically, let's say that we now have a strategy which is, only shows up once a day. It gives a 1 to 2 risk reward on average. Only works 50% of the time. You get 1 trade a day. Now we get into the kind of like the danger zone where we actually need to be, first of all, we need to have an extra rate of 66%, but we can't actually achieve that 15R in a month. And this is why I had a client once speak to me about how he'd love to have 1 trade that could just make 5 points a day, risk 5, try to make 5 and be done with it. The problem with that is you're never going to be profitable enough to be comfortably profitable. It's a nice idea making 3-4R in a month, but when you have such a small margin of error, your accuracy rate needs to be way too high. If we go to a point where you have, you know, we're really on the edge of profitability, where you have a strategy which technically does make profit. This strategy here, where it gives 2 trades a day, 40% win percentage, 1 to 2 risk reward, it's going to return 9R per month. You need to be 83% accurate just to break even, and it's not possible to make 15R in a month. So essentially, this is a calculator, and some of it is just for fun, to see, to plug your numbers in and to get an idea of how good you need to be to make money. But I think it's a pretty useful tool if we go back to something slightly more realistic numbers, 50% win percentage, and let's say you get 2.5 trades a day. You can use this in conjunction with my trading journal, and if you get to a point where you realize that your best trades work, say 53% of the time, they have a risk reward of 1 to 2, and they return 32.5R per month, you can set a target and say, to make 15R in a month, which is, you know, your target, you need to get to 80% profitability. And what you can then do is, on my trading journal, which I can get up real quick, you can then, in this section here where you have the accuracy requirement, you can put in that 80%. And as a result, you're going to have a very good idea as to what you need to be doing. So you can then use these together to be like, okay, I need to hit 80% accuracy level. This is the accuracy that I need to hit. I can track my trades, I can track my accuracy and see how close I am. I know that if I'm below this, then I'm not actually hitting my targets. It's a good way of visualizing how good you have to be in and where you are. So I hope you enjoy using this. It is available on my site to download, so make sure you check out the link in the description. If you've already downloaded it, I hope you're enjoying it, having some fun playing around with it, and also learning quite a bit about your strategy and how much you need to improve.